G'day, how you going? I'm Rick from Black Rose Spirited, and today we just wanted to do a very short vid on how to do paranormal investigations on a budget. And not many of us have got a lot of money, and it's great if you've got a whole heap of cash that you can splash out and buy the best of infrared gear and all sorts of stuff, but most of us don't. So where do you actually start? Well, when I first started, basically all I had was my senses, and so I learned to develop my senses, learned to feel spirit, learned to hear spirit, and that's basically where I started. And the only other things that I ever had with me when I went out into the field at all was a torch. Any sort of torch will do. Just as long as it's, bright enough so you don't trip over something in your path. And the only other thing that I carried around with me was a very tiny digital camera, which you could pick up. I think I picked this one up for about 50 bucks at the time or something. You'd probably pick them up for around about anywhere between 60 and 80 if you look around. I found that this was really quite good. You capture a lot of orb shots and a lot of misty type of phenomenon and all that sort of stuff. And night time you just set it to flash, take a few shots and see what you get. So that's the beginning of the equipment side of it. There's lots more equipment that you can actually get, but we decided all along that we were going to do everything on the cheap. We didn't want to spend a lot of cash, so we never did. And I just wanted to show you some of the things that we bought along the way on the cheap. So the first bit of kit that a paranormal investigator has, or ones that you will see very regular, and they're a great bit of kit, is the K2 meter. Now, if you look on eBay, you get varied prices for these sorts of things, but you can pick them up for generally under, $60, $70 if you look around. So you're not spending a lot of money, but this is a very important piece of kit because you can communicate with spirit, you can work yes, no answers and all that sort of stuff. And we've had a lot of fun with these and gotten a lot of responses. The only thing is with these, if you're working them on the inside of a house, just walk around your walls and gauge where all the electrical currents are running throughout the house, and you'll find that these things will set off when there's a bit of an electrical current. If you come anywhere near a fridge or a microwave or a TV or an internet device or whatever, this will set off to the max. So just make sure if you're using it in a house, you're not using it anywhere near where there's a main electrical current that's flowing. So this is a major bit of kit. You can pick them up rather cheaply. The next bit of kit that we like to use, again, you can pick up from electronic stores. Just pick up yourself a cheap recorder, a voice recorder, and you can use these to record EVPs, spirit voices. There's some other cheap things that you can actually pick up, which we've just now picked up. A couple of cat's balls. And what happens with these is when a spirit approaches it or comes close to it or actually moves it, the lights will actually set off. So we're going to play around with these sorts of things as well. We've also picked up a couple of these are little light sensors, and basically when a spirit or when somebody walks past one of these things, the light will go off once it's set. This one has got a distance of around about 5 meters, 6 meters, we've worked out. And so basically, if anything comes near it and it's moving, these things will set off. So it's kind of like a little bit of a warning thing. You can put a few of these along the perimeter of where you're working, and as you're trying to coax spirit in to come and communicate with you, they might walk past these things and actually set them off. Now, I know spirit do set these off, basically because I've got this thing in my way here. Basically because I was looking after a house at one stage that had quite a few of these along the walls, and I quite often just sit there very, very quietly and just watch. And being a medium, I could sense that spirit were coming into the house, and as they passed these things, the lights would set off. So we decided to use these for a bit of a perimeter thing. These things you pick up for $10 for two, something. They're relatively cheap. You can pick them up at Bunnings, and you know, it's worthwhile if you're trying to look for some gear to do some paranormal work on the cheap. Have a look at something like this. The other things that I do like to use, we like to use some old school stuff. And I don't know if you can see it properly here, but I've got a compass here, and we've quite often, it's a nice little compass, this one. Again, we picked it up relatively cheap. This one was a little bit more expensive. I think it was around about $40 odd or something. Again, picked it up on eBay, but we've managed to get spirit to come close to us and actually move the compass dial. So again, that's a little bit of a communication sort of thing happening there. I also have old school wise, we like to use pendulums of all sorts of varieties. Here we've just got one on display. This happens to be an old, I work in a hospital and they were throwing this out. This was an IV bag holder, and I thought, what a great pendulum stand. So just scored that one that was being thrown out into the rubbish. And here we've just got a brass pendulum. We like to use the brass one, but we also use different ones. We use cameos, we use sunstone, we use different types of crystal, we use protective crystals as well as communication type crystals if you're using pendulums. We like to actually use them on a stand, because a lot of people hold the pendulum up over their hand and try to work and communicate with spirit that way, or just hold it and try to communicate with spirit. We actually like to have it freestanding, especially if there's no wind or breeze around, because that way you can have your hand still underneath the pendulum itself to create that energy flow between you and the pendulum and spirit, and the spirit will use your energy to manipulate the pendulum. But the thing is, because it's freestanding, there's no chance of any sudden movement in the hand. So we like the freestanding ideas. So it's just a little, and you can make up your own little stand. We've got one that stands probably around about that high, a tripod thing we just use from old bits of metal that come from an old a washing hang your towel dryer thing. So it's just a broken down old bit of a washing stand thing. So we just pulled it apart and we set it up as a tripod, and it was pretty good. Old school again, we get a lot of fantastic hits with the divining rods. I'm actually pretty shit house at these, but the girls are pretty good. Some people have got it with the pendulums and the rods. I don't. That's not really my forte. My forte is more the sensing, and I'm liking to use some of the kit that we've got. Other bits of cameras, we've actually come across a real tiny one here, which is set, it's in a waterproof casing, and I think we picked this up for about $30 on eBay or Wish, or one of those ones anyway. And it's actually got an infrared setting. Now this is like a mini camera. You can actually tie it to your body or a helmet. You can use it. It's got the infrared on it is great for just a small room, like a bedroom, or like a small size lounge room or something. You'll get some great infrared. Not so good for the outside, but you know, you will get at least 6 or 7 meters of infrared. Night vision has got the night vision sort of setting as well, so for 30 bucks it's worth having a go at it, and we've you know, we've done all right with a little thing like this. The other thing that I like to use, I have my little camcorder here, and so I've got it set on a little tripod mechanism here because I've got a couple of other things attached to it. Now the camcorder is just night vision, it's not infrared. Okay, so it's alright for short distances, night vision or interior work and all that sort of stuff at night. During the day, brilliant cam, great stuff. You can do paranormal investigations during the daytime, and don't forget that. On this little setup, which was created by Paratech, which was some friends of ours. They do some great work. There's a little device here that you can have for infrared and ultraviolet settings, so that sort of helps in a small type of area too. You're looking around about, you know, the 6 to 8 meter mark or something, so a small room floods the area with a little bit of infrared and ultraviolet. The other thing I've got on top here too is I've got a little speaker. It's a little wireless device there, because quite often you like to just set your gear down and go off walking, and I've got a little headset mic here, and the range on it is probably around about 50-60 meters or more. I'm not too sure, I haven't tested out how far, but we've been at least 50 to 60 meters away from it, and it's come through on the little amplifier, which if you're videoing, the amplifier is sending the sound to your camcorder, so you're collecting all the sound, you know, as you're moving around. That's our little basic bit of kit. We also have a radar grid, which again was picked this up for about 50 bucks from a good friend of ours from Paratech, and he does some great work. And so this is one of ours, and there's a little power pack on top that you can take off, so if you need to actually plug something else into it, you've got an extra power pack there. If you look around, you can find these sorts of things. Again, from Paratech, we picked up one of these again for around about $50. This is a little proximity pod. Spirit come anywhere near it, it sets off a beeping device. It's a great little thing to have on Paranormal Investigations. The other things I like to use are also this is a little Sparky. You've probably seen him sitting there. He's what we call a little trigger object, and I've got a little bit of wire that runs off of him. I've wrapped the wire around Sparky, and what I do is I connect it over here to the pod aerial, and you can have it as long as you like really, but it gives you that extra bit of length in the wire that if a spirit comes anywhere near the doll or the pod or the wire, it's going to trigger the sensors off in the pod. So again, it's a very, very cheap way of doing things. We all